In November of 2022, Nebraska voters adopted an amendment to the Nebraska State Constitution, and that amendment provides for voter ID in the manner specified by the legislature. That's what the amendment says. It was overwhelmingly passed. I've supported voter ID for years. And last year, the legislature passed a bill implementing voter ID in Nebraska. That's the law that we're following. So now we're going to have an historic election in Nebraska. The primary on May 14, 2024 will be the first time that Nebraskans will be required to have a photo ID in order to vote. Well, first of all, if you have a driver's license or a state-issued photo ID that was issued by DMV, those work. 97 or 98% of Nebraska registered voters already have a DMV-issued driver's license or photo ID. So the overwhelming majority of voters are going to just be able to use their driver's licenses. But if you don't have that, there are a number of other forms of ID that are also acceptable. You could use a tribal ID, you can use a military ID, a U.S. passport, a student photo ID from a Nebraska college or university, public or private, those will work. If you have an ID that was issued by a political subdivision of the state, that's a photo ID, that will work as well. And for people who are residents of independent living communities or assisted living communities who just don't have their driver's licenses anymore, they all have on file with their communities a form that has their photograph on it and other identifying information. And the legislature made that usable also as an ID, particularly for people who are living there. If you forget your ID, then you can go home and get it, but if you're far from home, you'll still be allowed to vote a provisional ballot. That is, you'll be able to mark your ballot, it'll be put in an envelope, held provisionally, and you'll have a week from Election Day to go into the county clerk's office or the county election commissioner's office, show your ID, and then once you've shown your ID, then your ballot will be counted. Well, the last day to request a mail-in ballot is May 3rd. And when you send in your request, because for most people they have to send in a written request in order to get an ID, a ballot in the mail. When you send in your written request, then you'll write down your driver's license number or your state ID number if you have DMV issued driver's license or state ID. If you're using some other form of ID, you make a copy of that and then enclose that copy along with your request. If you live in a county that has all by mail voting, then you don't have to request a ballot, it's just going to be sent to you. When you return your ballot, in that envelope, there'll be a place for you to write down your DMV license number or your DMV state ID number. And when you write that down, you put your ballot in the envelope and then fasten the flap, then the flap will cover that information. So it can't be seen by anybody until it's opened at the election office. And then again, if you don't have those two forms of ID, then you make a copy of what you do have and enclose it with the ballot when you send it back in. If your address is correct on your new form of ID and it's incorrect on your registration, then they'll correct your registration right there. It's the other way around, where the registration is right but your ID is wrong, then it's a process that you go through that they'll handle at the polls. You know, we've been getting some questions here and there about people who wonder, do they have to re-register under this law? If you're registered to vote, you do not have to re-register. It's good if your address is correct, you want to make sure that's correct, but if you're registered to vote, that's fine. You do not need to re-register. What you need to do is to bring one of these approved documents to show that you are who you say you are.